Hi guys, welcome to Dr. Ram's Medical Coding Academy. We are just with our organ system training sessions, and this is a series of the free training sessions on medical coding. We have completed this integumentary system and now we are going to deal with the skeletal system. When we talk about the skeletal system, it occurs along with a muscular system. So we commonly call it as a musculoskeletal system. Today we are going to discuss only about the skeletal system. Before that, we need to know what a skeleton is. Let's go to the word meaning of this skeleton. It is a Greek word which means dried up. Skeletos means dried up. Skeleton is a framework of bones and cartilage. This is also very much needed for the NEET exam as well. They might ask you, what is skeleton? Is it of purely skeleton in the sense like only bones or only joints or cartilages? Then the most appropriate answer would be, it is a framework of bones and cartilages. Well, we all know we have like 206 bones in the human body. When we were like babies and kids, we had more than 300. But during the process of ossification, we say like it is a fusion of bones. From 300, an adult has 206 bones. The human skeleton can be classified into two types as the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. You can also very well see the picture over here. We have the axial and the appendicular skeleton, where the axial system forms a center, and you can see this appendicular. The word appendicular means, to get appended. Something has been added. The appendicular bones are being added to the axial system. You can very well see in the picture, we have the human skeleton with the axial and the appendicular bones. Let's get going with the axial skeleton. As the name indicates, it forms a vertical axis of the body, and it is made up of three main parts, and those parts include 80 bones. The axial skeleton includes 80 bones. And what are these parts? We have the skull, the vertebral column, and the thorax. How you remember this is, think of TVS. TVS. So T for thorax, V for vertebral column, and S for skull. The TVS forms the axis. This would be a mnemonic for you to remember. The parts that constitute the axial skeleton, you can also think of this way as TVS 80, which means thorax, vertebral column, and the skull making up the 80 bones. So TVS 80 would be the appropriate mnemonic for you to remember the number of bones that constitute the axial skeleton. Now let's go to each of these parts. First, we are going to deal with the skull. The skull contains 28 bones in total. The skull can also be further divided into various regions. We will delve deeper about each of these particular bones, but here I am just gonna recite or talk about the names of the bones that constitute the skull, which is there in the head region. We have the cranial bones, the facial bones, the ear ossicles, and the hyoid bone. The cranial bones are 8 in number, and the facial bones are like 14 in number. The ear ossicles, which are the smallest parts of the human body, which means they can also ask you which is the smallest bone in the human body. In that case, you need to say like the ear ossicles. The ear ossicles, malleus, incus, stapes, form the smallest bones. On all of these bones, the stapes is the smallest bone in the human body. And hyoid bone, though it does not specifically belong to the skull region, it is present in the neck region, but still we are counting it as a bone of the skull. Technically, it is not a bone of the skull, but then we can also add it up as the bone in the neck region. So from the head region, we have these 28 bones, and when we also include the hyoid bone, it becomes 29 bones. Moving on to the next region, which is a vertebral column, here we have like 33 bones actually. In a child, there are 33 vertebrae. A vertebra is a singular and vertebrae is a plural form. But during the process of ossification and fusion of bones, the adult male has 26 vertebrae, and these can be conveniently divided into various regions as cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccyx. The number of bones in the cervical region is 7. When we say thoracic, it is the back region. We have 12 vertebrae. And in the lower back, we have the lumbar region as 5 vertebrae, and the sacral bones are actually 5 number. They fuse to form as one segment, and thereby we have just one sacral bone. And the coccygeal are also 4 in number, and they fuse to form as one coccygeal bone. So finally, you will get the number of bones as 26. Coming to the thoracic region, we say it's a thoracic cage. This is being predominantly formed by bones which is there in the middle called as a breastbone or the sternum, and then we have the ribs. The ribs are 12 pairs, so we have like 24 bones of the ribs. In total, we have like 25 bones in the thoracic region. Let's see once again the total bones that are there in the axial bones, which are being formed by the skull, the hyoid, the vertebrae and the thorax. We have 28 of the skull bones, 1 of hyoid, and vertebrae is 26, which is actually 33 in children, and thorax it is 25. When you sum up all of these, we'll have 80 bones. Let's quickly see a coding scenario where Kumar has sustained a head injury and developed intracerebral hematoma for which craniotomy is done. If you notice, I would have also told you all about that these musculoskeletal procedures are found in the CPT section, in the sense like with 2 series. We have this integumentary as 1 series, or which is a first chapter of the surgical section of the CPT manual, whereas musculoskeletal forms a second chapter of the surgical section. But here, if you notice, the patient is having an intracerebral hematoma, which is actually a blood clot. Now let's see this medical terminology as intracerebral. Intra, the word means like within, or the prefix means like within. Cerebral refers to the cerebrum, which is a part of the brain. And hematoma, you can also break this word as heme plus oma or hemato plus oma. Hemato means a blood, and oma here means a tumor or a clot. Hemato means blood, and oma refers to the mass. So we have hematoma as a blood clot. Now let's see, for this procedure, the surgeon has performed craniotomy. Since the condition is there with the brain, we need to select the code from the neurology section of the CPT manual, and that is why the procedure code becomes a 6 series code instead of the 2 series code. Though craniotomy is being done, craniotomy belongs to the musculoskeletal system. But then the procedure is classified as a neurosurgery, and thereby we will have to report a 6 series code instead of a 2 series code. So for the neurosurgeon, you will have to report the CPT code 61312, and for the diagnosis, we need to report it as S06.360A. As a patient has sustained an injury, it is an acute injury, and thereby we all know S codes of the ICD-10-CM are actually for acute injuries. I hope this session would have been helpful to you all. Let me also explain each and every fragment of this organ systems, and we will have more and more sessions on these organ systems. Apart from this medical coding, this entire syllabus is also a part of the NEET exam as well. So please ask your relatives, your kids, or your friends, or your siblings to also go through these sessions, so that this will be immensely helpful, because this portion is also being created keeping this NEET exam in mind. If you have any queries or any doubts, you can always reach out to us. And as you all know, we are providing the advanced medical coding entry-level training programs at Dr. Ram's Academy. If your friends or anybody is interested, you can always reach out to us. Well, I'll see you in your next class. Till then, take care.
You can contact us at 805-60855-969962791072.